Hey monkeys, how you doing? It's Damien Keys here. Welcome to the number 7 show of the hashtag Ask Damo show. And I say as always, but she's back on the show. Melissa is back on the show asking questions. I was really lonely last week.
Yeah, I felt that.
I was very lonely. I don't know if you saw the video, but it was just a bit more down than usual.
I miss being here.
Yeah. So thank you for coming back. Are you feeling better?
Yes, I'm all good now, thank you.
Good.
Tonsils no longer fat.
Fantastic. So we haven't had any presents this week. How disappointing. I did have a few people ask me about mugs and how they can send me mugs and how much it costs to actually get a mug featured. And I was like, nothing. Just send me stuff and I will promote it.
Mugs now.
Simple as that. Send me stuff, I'll promote it. We've still got stuff on the wall. We have got a new CD edition from last week from the Suffer No Fools guys. Thank you so much. But we are starting to build, but we need shit, man. We need stuff. We need your band. We are here for you. We're promoting you. So you need to get us some shit so we can stick it on our walls. And so in the description of the video, I will put the address. If you want to send a t-shirt, ideally I'm a size small. I'm not as fat as you think I am. Television puts £10 on apparently, but I'm not an extra large, I'm a small. But if you want us to wear stuff, that's the size. If you want it to go on the wall, send it through and we'll get through. So, questions of the day. We've got some questions?
We've got some questions.
Hooray, we feel loved.
So, first one's from Jamie. Says, hi Damo, quite simply, do Facebook ads actually work? And if the answer is yes, what am I doing wrong?
Facebook ads are not only do they work, but Facebook ads are the best way of advertising in this day and age. Stat, period. There is no better way. And the reason for that is because how specifically you can attach a demographic to your advert. And that's the key to it. And I think when I've been actually working with a few businesses on their social media over the last couple of weeks, and the biggest problem and the main area I see that people fuck up with their Facebook ads is they make it so vague. So they go, we're going to advertise to 18 to 60-year-olds. Well, instantly you fucked it, because if you are a business, what businesses do you know other than Coca-Cola and that size business? What businesses advertise to children and pensioners at the same time? And so you've got to be as specific as possible. And it's not a case of just getting in front of as many eyeballs as possible. It's about getting in front of as many eyeballs for your demographic as possible. That's the key bit. So if you're going to put a £10 into a Facebook ad boost or a Facebook advert, for example, then Facebook will tell you how many people you're going to hit. So you put in £10, it'll say for a tenner, we will put this in front of 2,000 people, for example, if that's the rate for that day. £10 equals 2,000 people. Now it's up to you to decide who that 2,000 people is. If you are taking a demographic or an interest, as it were, as it's called on Facebook when you're advertising, and it says, for example, music, and it says 63 million people have liked something to do with music, you're only going to hit 2,000 people. So out of 63 million, you're hitting 2,000. It's much better to get those numbers down much smaller, ideally to below 500,000 people, so that the people that you're hitting are specific to your genre. So this is the example I would use, right? I'm selling mugs, okay? And I'm gonna sell mugs for Lord of the Rings, okay? So I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, I'm selling Lord of the Rings merchandise. Now, I put my advert on Facebook, and then I advertise to people between the age of 18 and 65 that like Lord of the Rings. So that includes every age and anyone that's liked anything to do with Lord of the Rings. So what that means is that potentially, that could be me, because I like Lord of the Rings, it's really good. And there might have been an advert that came on that I might have liked and gone, oh, that's a really good advert, or that's a really good film, oh yeah, it's one of my favourite films. Am I going to buy a mug? No, I'm not going to buy a Lord of the Rings mug. I want band mugs. But what I am going to do is, if I'm advertising, is I'm going to delve into the people that are fans of Lord of the Rings. So I'm not going to go put Lord of the Rings as a film. I'm going to go and find someone who's a fan of Gimli. Because if someone likes Gimli, if anyone's watching this going, fucking love Gimli, you're the guy that we're advertising to. You're the one we're trying to find. And if you go and find an interest or people that like the page Gimli the dwarf, and there's going to be 100,000 people that like Gimli the dwarf, they're much more likely to buy a Lord of the Rings mug than someone that just happens to like anything to do with Lord of the Rings. And so if you're advertising to 2,000 people who are that engrossed in that film, they're that much of a fan that they've probably bought a t-shirt and they've probably seen the film a million times, and they know about the Battle of, I don't even know. But, you know, those are the people that you're trying to get to. And advertising to 2,000 of those people is much more effective than advertising to 2,000 people that just generally like Lord of the Rings. Your job when you're selling something, whether it's in a band and you're selling a single, your job is to get that target audience to exact that you can. And so the age group is absolutely imperative that you get the right age group. And then the interest and what they like, it's imperative that you get that right. So when you say, what are you doing wrong? I don't know, because I haven't seen, but I guarantee you, if you go back into your adverts and you actually check out what you've done wrong, for me, there's two aspects. Number one is you're advertising to the wrong people and you've got to really hone in on your actual demographic. Or number two, people are then seeing your advert, they are clicking on it, they are watching it, and they aren't getting the right value from the message that you're sending. It can only be pretty much those two things. They're either seeing it and going, that's not for me, or they're saying that could be for me, seeing it and going, it could be for me, but it's not. It's one of those two things. I bet you it's the first one. I bet you that you are advertising to a much too big a demographic, and you've got to really narrow it down. If you're going to put in a $5 or a $10, you're not going to see that many people aren't going to see your stuff. So make them the right people. And if you've got an advertising budget of £1 million, you can afford to be a bit more vague. But if you are dealing with small numbers, you've got to be as specific as possible. So in answer to your question, I think that's what you're doing wrong, even though I haven't seen your Facebook. If that's not the case, hit me up on Facebook and I'll answer your question specifically. I'll happy to look into your Facebook, but it will be one of those two things.
So Chris is saying, I'm a guitar teacher. How can I use socials to build my business locally and not worldwide?
Okay, yeah, because obviously when you put stuff up on YouTube, anyone in the world can see it. And so actual locals, again, a little bit on the advertising, you can use Facebook advertising to start advertising, but this is what I would do if I was a guitar teacher in the area of Norwich, for example. What I would do is I would firstly get a website, if you haven't got a website, because I think socials bring so much. They bring social proofing. And what social proofing means is it means they believe in what you do. They see it and they just think, oh yeah, this is real, this works, this guy's still doing, this guy knows what he's doing. But I think when it comes to a product, I really do think it helps to have an old school website. So I'd go a bit more old school. I would have a website which has everything that you do and everything about you and what value. The purpose of a website, especially that homepage, is very, very simple. Who are you? What do you do? And what value are you bringing to the person on your website? Those are the three questions, that, especially from the homepage, that you're trying to answer. And so therefore, I would go old school. I would have a website because it just shows that you are, if you're targeting mums and dads of kids as well, it just feels a little bit more substantial. And the next thing I would do is I would look into Google adverts. And it is going to cost a bit of money, but you know, this is business. You're going to have to spend money. Everybody always wants to know how they can do stuff for free. Like when it comes to advertising, you have to pay money. That's what advertising is. It's someone who's got an audience of some kind, whether it's TV or radio or influencer marketing. Advertising is saying, look, you've built this audience, let me hijack that. You have to pay for it. That's the way it works. And if you are going to pay for advertising, what's the most direct way of advertising to people of where they're going to look for guitar teaching? It's going to be Google. If you need something, if you need a plumber, if you need a guitar teacher, the first place you're going to go is Google. That's the way it works. You know, Facebook's great for stumbling across things, and seeing an advert for something that appeals to you and thinking, oh, that's good, I like that, I might like that, or I might keep in touch with that. But when you specifically are going to look for something, I want guitar lessons, then you are going to Google, because you're going to put into Google guitar lessons in Norwich, and then it's up to Google, and Google is the best at this. Google is so good. Google genuinely, and YouTube, they genuinely want to give you what you're looking for. So Google is constantly changing its algorithms for the sole purpose of you, the person searching, getting exactly what they want on the first go. They don't want you to hit 5 different things. So they're constantly trying to give you exactly what you're looking for. So when it comes to Google Ads, when someone puts in guitar lessons in Norwich, it couldn't be more specific. Someone in Norwich is looking for guitar lessons. You need to be on the back of that search. Now, if you haven't got a big SEO presence, which is the Google natural rankings, the next option is on the side option, which you can pay for small adverts on the side, you'll all know them, which go down the side of Google and sometimes on the top, and you pay for them, and depending on how much money you're putting in, it's kind of a bidding system. You when someone puts in that key phrase, if you put in the most amount of money and you're pretty relevant to the search, Google will put you at the top, and if you put less money in, it'll go down the side. So that's the first thing I would do, because there is nothing more specific than someone saying, I need a guitar teacher. I'll go on Google, I need a guitar teacher. But what I would, going back to your question, because that might be something you're already doing, what would I use social media for? I would use social media for the social proofing side to it. So nowadays, people don't just want to find a guitar teacher. They want to find the best guitar teacher. They want to find what they're going to get from you. Like back in the day, it was the Yellow Pages. If you wanted to advertise something, there was no Google, you had Yellow Pages, you wanted a guitar teacher, you opened the page to guitar teachers or music teachers, and it would be in there, and you just go, oh good, AA guitar teaching, or AB guitar teaching, or Aardvark guitar teaching, and that would be it. You'd ring them up, are you a guitar teacher? Yes. Can I book in a free lesson or a lesson with you? Yes, you can. Off you go, and there's the lesson already sorted. Nowadays, there's so many comparison websites. If you want a plumber, there's Check a Trade, and you've got a million testimonials. All that is social proofing. So what I would use social media for is I would prove to the world that you are a great guitar teacher, so that the people in your area take you more serious than everybody else. So the way I would do that is I would probably look at YouTube, because if you're a guitar teacher, you have to be able to teach. You have to prove that you can teach. People want to see, they want to try before they buy. Yes, they can come in for a free guitar lesson, great, but they've got to get to that point. They've got to buy into you and your personality and your methods and your playing, because they can do that anywhere online. So when it comes to it, I would be 100% looking at YouTube, and I would be making tutorials, and I'd be making lessons of you teaching guitar, because that way you can say to someone when on your website, if you want to see a bunch of examples of what I do, go to YouTube. So it's social proofing. You're saying to people, yes, I'm a guitar teacher, but before you try, why don't you have a look at this? So on your website, that's called a call to action. And a call to action is very, very important on a website. People need to be navigated around a website. So when people are making a website, what they tend to do is they go, me, 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 me. You're not thinking about the other way around. When someone comes to their website, they're the user. What are they going to your website for? And they need to be told what to do. Just like when you're in a band and you're on stage, you tell the audience what to do. You finish the song by going, nah, bang, because the audience goes, end of the song, we go mad, we go mental, and you go scream, and everyone goes hooray, and you go, are you ready? And they go yes, and you're commentating your way through an audience. And you do the same thing on a website. You don't give people a million options, you give them one, maybe two, and one of those options to get them deeper in your website is a call to action. Find out more about how I can bring you value effectively. And the way you can do that is perfectly with social media, with YouTube. Now, Facebook advertising is potential. Will you get a lot of people that will find you through Facebook? Not as many as Google, because people will stumble across you and think, oh, actually, do you know what? This guy's in my local area. Maybe I will. So if you're going to spend money on advertising, I personally would go for Google Ads, and I would use social media to build up trust in the people that will see you in order to come to you for lessons. As for which platforms you use, YouTube definitely 100%. Facebook, because it's just nice and easy for people to be sent a Facebook link, so why not? And then, I mean, if you want to go down Instagram route, because there's ways of doing hashtags, I probably wouldn't do that, to be fair. I probably would make it as simple as possible and concentrate on making great content for YouTube, and which you can share on Facebook, and then Google AdWords the shit out of it. And I'd be spending £5 a day. If you're charging £20 to £30 for lessons, I'd be spending £5 a day, and I'd be using key phrases: guitar teacher in Norwich, guitar lessons Norwich. That's the key, and I would have a website.
What would your thoughts be on, if you couldn't quite afford to stretch to a Google advert, advertising on the sites that do come up on Google fairly early on, so like top guitarists in the Norwich area, that kind of thing, getting yourself onto those?
Yeah, I would do anything. I mean, what it comes down to with all advertising and marketing is the more money, the easier it becomes, in a lot of respects. I mean, you've still got to know what you're doing, but you can still do stuff for free. And I think that's why people watch YouTube clips, because they want to do things as cheap as possible. But I mean, if it were me, I would go and borrow 100 quid. And if you can't afford 100 quid to set up a business, then you probably should think about doing something else. You know, if you're thinking, wow, I can't even stretch to 100 quid. And I would put all of that 100 quid into Google adverts, or getting a website sorted, which you can do yourself on Wix. I mean, they're literally free. And then I'd get all the information. I'd learn about building websites from Wix for free. I'd put all the stuff I wanted, get all the content for free, and I'd put all of that budget into Google AdWords over a period of £5 a day, with a click-through rate probably in that area of I'd start off at 50p, and you'll know, because if you put in 50p per click and you're at the top, you might be able to bring it down a little bit. If you put 50p and you're at the bottom, you might need to raise it up again. But if you think about what's called cost per lead and cost per click, we're getting proper businessy now, but in order for someone to hear about your business that is looking for you, 50p, I mean, what a bargain. Like, what a bargain. It's for someone who says, I'm looking for guitar lessons, and someone says, well, here's a guitar teacher in your area, and that costs you 50p. I mean, people and businesses spend thousands of pounds to get a lead. I mean, with Google AdWords, you can literally do it for 50p a pound. So I would say borrow a bit of money if you need to, but Google AdWords would be the best way of getting the most direct people. If you can't afford it, then you are going to have to go down the Facebook route, and you're just going to have to make so much content on your phone, and you're going to have to prove to the world that you are worth taking a punt on.
So it was from Louise, who was asking, hey monkeys, I love music, but I'm not a strong player. I want a career in the music industry and to work with bands. So how do I become a band manager? Okay, so
I mean, the key is definitely doing. I mean, promoting yourself as a band manager is very difficult, especially if this is your first go at it. It's you need to have a project to work on. Just like if you're a musician and you want to be in a band, you need to have a band to work on. So a big part of this is about learning the music industry and understanding it. And without sounding egotistical and arrogant, there's 200 and something videos on my YouTube where many of them are about the music industry strategies, how bands can actually take this to the next level. And the more you know and the more you're learning, the easier it's going to be for you to start managing bands. But a big part of this is how much value you are bringing to bands, because bands are looking all the time to be managed. In fact, most bands very much are looking to be managed too early on, in my opinion. I see that quite a lot. We need a band manager. And I say, why? And there's no answer. It's like, well, that's the next step, isn't it? Or it's either we don't know what we're doing and we need help, or there's so much stuff to do, we need more help, and it's just, they're not organized. So bringing value for me is a big thing. So I think starting with actually how you're going to bring value, even silly things like, if you had a blog where you are actually promoting local bands or singles or live gigs or things like that, that would bring value to bands, and it would actually get you in the eye of bands. Then the other thing I would do is I'd actually, if it's a starting thing, I would actually go and find some young bands who are sort of starting to gig, just starting to find their feet, and I would approach them and say to them, look, I want to be in the music industry. I want to be a band manager. I feel like I can bring you value, and we can work as a team. I think a lot of bands would be excited by the fact that someone's taken note of them, and I feel like they'd probably give it a go, because most bands are scared. And then when it comes to bringing value, like I'm not a band manager, but when it comes to bringing value, a lot of bands need to be organized, and you are managing the project. So before we start worrying about going to have meetings at record labels and how you're going to get on Radio 1 and on playlists and stuff, before we worry about that, just actually getting things into order and being organized with things like, when are you writing? When are you rehearsing? What social media is happening? Who's in charge of it? When's it going out? And so it's just organizing what is happening. Then the biggest part of it is setting goals, setting targets, and deciding the deadlines of when we're going to get there, and the baby steps. Because bands are creatives. Bands are full of musicians. They're full of creatives. And creatives, on the whole, tend to want to, they want to do everything. So they're on every social media platform, and they're trying to get every gig and every blog, and there's a million things that you can do, and it's not strategized. All of a sudden it's just like, we can do this and we'll do that and we'll do this. Nothing's consistent, and things go for a little bit and drop off, and they try something else and it drops off, and there's no coherent strategy. Now, as a manager, you can learn all that sort of stuff, and it's okay as well when you're a young manager to actually be the person that says, look, as the manager, I'm letting you know that I watched this video by Damien the other day, and he said this, and we're not doing this. Or not just music industry advice, but if you're looking at things like social media advice, business advice, those sort of aspects that you can bring to the party and say, look, I'm watching a lot of this stuff online, and this is things that we are doing wrong, or this is things that we could be doing better. And it comes down to organizing, setting goals, and trying to hit some targets, because a lot of bands are just doing things off the cuff and not knowing what they're doing. And having someone that just takes an overview of the whole game and says, look, I can help with this, I think would be a very attractive offer to a lot of bands. So learning and practice is the biggest part. Go and find a band so you can actually put this stuff into practice.
And would you say that kind of in the long term, if you keep doing this and you work with bands in the long term, that like opportunities will arise?
Yeah, they absolutely will. Yeah, and you will become better at recognizing the opportunities. But I mean, I'm not a band manager. You would not believe how many bands come and ask me to manage them. I mean, like, I've had hundreds, in just the last 8 or 9 months of doing this, I've had hundreds of bands that said, do you want to manage my band? And I'm like, firstly, that's not the way you ask. And secondly, no, because I'm not a band manager, so it wouldn't work. I'm a business person that recognizes that my strengths lie in helping musicians, and I'm learning about social media and using that as the vehicle, but I'm not a band manager. And I have dipped my toe in that water. So when I was at BIM, I used to help out bands and try and manage a couple of them. There was one band that I did manage, and what was amazing was talking about getting names out there. But the band started doing well. My job was to organize them and to set targets and make sure they're not doing anything that they don't need to be doing, and everything that they need to be doing, they needed to actually do. So I was holding them accountable, and they were very talented, and we came up with strategies. And then all of a sudden the band started to go, and I started to get phone calls from labels and just people in the music industry, and I shit myself because I was like, I don't want to fuck up these guys' chances of a career, but at the same point, I feel like I'm holding this together with them. It's like, it's a group. It wasn't like there's the band and I'm the manager. It felt like there was 5 of us and I was one of those 5 people. And I never went on stage with them, but I was at the back watching, and I was thinking, this is somewhere we can improve. That's something we can work on. This is an area that we can target. As a band manager, my job was never to go and get the gigs. I was like a minion. I was there to take an overview and watch. And especially at the beginning, and Louise, if you are at the beginning of this and you're looking at how to become a band manager, forget all that, how to get a record deal. Let's start with getting the band organized and actually achieving some targets. And as you said, what will happen is over time, people will recognize what you're doing and they'll be coming to you. And you live and die by the decisions, because you're not going to make a Louise managing bands Facebook page. That just doesn't work. You live and die by the bands that you're working with. So the opportunities are there, and you'll become better at recognizing them. But I would spend a lot of time reading blogs, watching videos, and then putting that into practice and actually sitting there and having meetings, because bands are generally unorganized. Not all of them, not all of you, but bands are generally unorganized, and what they do is they get together and they'd have a rehearsal. You know, the amount of times I'll go into a band's rehearsal and I'm like, that was pointless. Like, you've just had a 3-hour rehearsal and it's like, yeah, crack open some tinnies and we'll have a play. And I'm like, what are you trying to achieve from your rehearsal? we should do a video on that. What is it that you're trying to achieve from rehearsing? Is it the live gig? Is it recording songs? Is it arrangement? Is it getting tighter? What is it? And bands get together, play their songs, and they fuck off home again. Like, as a manager, I'd be saying, how often are we going to rehearse? What are you going to rehearse? What's the target for the rehearsals? What are we trying to do in the next month? And therefore, it's just written on a piece of paper, and I hold them accountable to it. And if you do that, bands will get better quickly, and your name will get out there, and you'll get more and more offers.
Well, I'll go on to Dougie's question now. He says, "Hi Damo, thanks for all the content. It's great to see someone helping young musicians. I'm over 50 and not looking to be famous, but I do love playing and creating. Could you please make some content for us oldies on how we can grow what we do? I'm learning about social media, but a little out of touch. Keep up the good work, Dougie."
Ah, that's really cool. Okay, so I mean that's a good point. We tend to base a lot of our content towards 20 to 30-year-olds because if you look at the insights of my audience, it tends to be 19 to 32, but that doesn't mean that there's not musicians that aren't watching this that are 13 or 70. And and I like the way it says oldies at 50. I don't think that's old at all. And I like the way he says about not being famous, and it's just a case of growing what he does. And I think that's a really big thing, is not everybody wants to be famous, not everybody wants to sell 1 million records, but everybody wants to get their music out there to more and more people. And I think a big part of this comes down to learning enough about the industry and to build your audience, but to keep the bits that are the most important to you, which is having fun. And for me, having fun is when you make music. I mean, well, that's why you do it, isn't it? You make music to create, and you enjoy creating and building it. And the pressures then of getting a record deal and selling 1 million records, they do weigh heavy when you're having to set all these targets. Whereas if you're just trying to grow something, then you can take a slightly different strategy. I think one thing is, there was one bit you said about, I'm learning about social media, but a little out of touch. So I think that's a very important statement, because social media isn't going away. And age, unfortunately, is not an excuse anymore, because it's here to stay. And it's just the way people communicate. People used to communicate on the phone. And, I was with a mate of mine yesterday, and he was talking about his dad's 80. He was like, we're not very good with phones. I get that. But when you're 40 or 50, like I'm 40, like I had a skateboard until a couple of years back. So I think age, when it comes to social media, isn't something that's an excuse. It's something you have to embrace. You don't have to go as full on into it as I have, but if you look at my journey over the last 9 months, I started this in August, and before August, I didn't have any social media. I was one of those people that went, oh, fuck Facebook, and I didn't even have a personal Facebook. And because I didn't want to see people's breakfast, I wanted to build my business, and I wanted to just shut all that stuff away. I wasn't bothered by other people's stuff. Then I realized that this is the way that we build brands and we communicate, and you can dip your toe into that social media stuff a lot smaller than trying to be on every single platform. So I think, Dougie, what I would do if I were you is I would pick the social media platforms that make this fun, because you're creating. And I would think, depending on whether you want to make videos or how you're creating your music, and if you're thinking, oh, I don't make videos, that's horrible, then you've still got stuff like SoundCloud, Facebook, Instagram. There's millions of ways of doing it, but unfortunately, it's no excuse. You're gonna have to embrace some of the social media stuff, because it's just the way people are going to hear about you the quickest, because of the amount of noise and everyone's doing it. And so I think, just having a look at the question again, I just think being 50 it's a great time to make music. I think you've got so much of a great story. I think it's more interesting than every other 20-year-old in a band. I think it's how you tell your story, because I think I'm interested in Dougie, because how he's going to make this work at 50, and what he wants to do, because he has said, I don't want to be famous, but I want to create. I want to get my music out there. So, playing gigs is going to be fun. I mean, that is such an underrated thing. You know, I get people asking me, should I be doing gigs? Is it the best way to promote my band? And I'm thinking, no, but it's fucking fun, isn't it? Like, that's why we do this. We love it. The standing on stage. Surely that's why every single one of us got into being a musician. To pick up a guitar, a bass, a microphone, drumsticks, walk on that stage, play something, and have someone go, oh, dude, that's wicked. That to me is the be all and end all of creating something. You even the writing for me is like, you write music not so you can sell it, you write music so that you can play it. For me, I mean, that's the way I look at it. So if you're 50, get out there and play. You know, whether it's pubs or clubs, or you might not want to go on tours, but there's still loads of places that you can play out there. I think it does need a slightly different strategy, because you're not going to be going and playing. You're probably not going to go and play in a venue with 3 other 18 to 20 year olds. You might be up for that, but I do think there's loads of ways. But I think personally, when I look at that question, I think the main thing is number one, just because you're 50, it doesn't mean you get the excuse to say that social media is you're a little bit out of touch with social media, because it doesn't take long, because it's not complicated, and because all of the content I'm making for all ages, but for 18 to 20 year olds, they've got no fucking idea either. That's why they're watching this shit. I had no idea, and I had to start looking into it and developing it. One thing I've learned with social media is there are social media companies, not social media people. There are social media experts that are shit at social media. It's hilarious. It's such a new market, because social media's only been going for 20 years. So many people are stabbing in the dark, and I see so many people setting themselves up as a self-employed social media person, and I'm looking at their stuff going, are you fucking kidding me? You're paying for that. What are you talking about? It's this, if I just do it enough, then eventually I'll get good at it. Well, don't charge for it, do it for free. And I think because of that, there is this stigma attached to social media, and it's not as complicated as people make out. This is just communication, engagement, and a way of doing what we've been doing for 60 years. You know, everything is different. I always say this in the music industry, everything is different, and yet everything is the same as well. It's so weird. Like, we are in a totally different time where you can do so much great stuff with social media, yet the general message of what you're doing is the same thing as McDonald's was doing in the 60s or whatever it's going to be. So everything's different, everyth's the same. This is just a new way, and learning social media doesn't take long, whether you're 18 or whether you're 70. It's just a way of finding the way that you want to get your message across. Podcasting, videos, spoken word, pictures, Twitter. It's just communication, engagement, building relationships. That's all this is. It's storytelling and building relationships. So I think you are in an amazing position being 50 years old, because you might have a little bit of extra money that you can put into it. You might have some extra time because your kids have grown up. I don't know. But I think I could start a band at 50 and have a right laugh. Probably more so than when I was 18, because all the pressure's off. And everything I do is like just for fun. And if I want to go on tour, I can go on tour. And if I want to do gigs, I can do gigs. But there's no pressure to do anything I don't want to do. So the main bit of advice I would give you is really enjoy building this. Enjoy the journey more so than putting too much pressure on the end result. It's for most people, it's too much pressure. I think it's all about fun. For me, with this, I love it. Like, I've got my targets in my head, but as soon as I hit my targets, if I get to the area that I want to get to, and I'm like, oh, I've got 1 million followers on Facebook, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to go, well, I want 10 million. It's never going to be enough. But whilst I'm doing it, the most important thing for me is I'm loving the journey. Every day I love making videos and trying different things and seeing what's working, because I see it as creating and building. So that's the area for me is find the social media that's working and enjoy the process of making music and just having fun and experimenting with stuff.
Okay, cool. Well, we are fresh out of questions.
Hooray! Cool. So thanks for watching. Facebook Live every Wednesday, 7 p.m. If you want actual specific questions there and then, I'll be Facebooking Wednesday, 7 p.m. Otherwise, big thing, if you can subscribe to my YouTube, that is the big thing for me, and that's the area I really want to build. So thank you so much for watching, and see you guys next week.
Adios.